You are now listening to the hashtag MBDA Conversations podcast. In this podcast, you will be informed and empowered about MBDA's social, spatial, and economic transformation programs in Nelson Mandela Bay. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to hashtag MBDA Conversation podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your season's host, Oluwam Mnwazi. Follow us on our social media pages, and to be part of the conversation, send us a voice note on WhatsApp on 072-423-0271. Joining us in studio is MBDA's Operation Executive, Debbie Hendricks. She'll be speaking to us about MBDA's active precincts and capital projects. And I'm happy to have Debbie here because she has a nice smile and I'm getting comfortable in front of her. Hello, Debbie.
Oh, wow. Comfortable in front of me. Hello, Olwam. Thank you for having me.
No, we appreciate it. You know, MBDA is a very recognizable entity locally. So we are proud and we become very excited to meet the people behind the brand. You have such a present brand. Debbie, just briefly tell us, what are these active precincts that we're talking about at MBDA?
Okay, so MBDA, thank you for that question. It's often asked. We don't work blanketly across the metro. We have specific areas, what we call our mandated areas, where we have been directed by the municipality to focus certain interventions across the metro, and these come through various processes. But the areas are the inner city. The inner city includes the Garden Mbeki Central Precinct. It includes Lower Barkens, and then the beachfront area, including Bay West, Kings Beach, etc. That's the inner city. That's one of the precincts. The second one is in New Brighton, specifically the areas Ward 14, 15, 16, 17 around Red Location, that part of New Brighton, old New Brighton town. The other one is Causton Shorterville. The other precinct is Helenvale. Utney is another precinct, and then we have a precinct in around the stadium and its surrounds, because that's also a project of the MBDA. So those are the current active precincts. We're currently considering should that remain as such, but should we expand that or include others? But that direction comes from the municipality. So those are the ones that we have been working in for some time, and in the foreseeable future we still have projects to complete in those active precincts.
Please tell us about the 5-year plan that is in place that MBDA is busy about.
Okay, right. So as you might know or not know, that the MBDA is actually an entity of the municipality. So often we get asked the question, why a 5-year plan? You know, is that a bit long? Is it short time to be planning? But really, because of the fact that we are an entity of the municipality, we align our planning, our reporting cycles to the local government timelines and administrative processes. So that's typically on a 5-year cycle. So local elections is every 5 years, and then you have a new council coming in. Our board is also then re-elected, and with every new administration, there's new directors, new mandate direction that's given to the MBDA. We take our direction and our mandate from the municipality. So we do the 5-year planning in those cycles, but also we are a project management company. We implement projects on behalf of the municipality. So a lot of those projects are capital projects. By that I mean infrastructure projects, and it's often not single-year projects. It's often multi-year projects. And a typical lifespan is around 5 years. People often underestimate how long it takes to plan projects. You know, it's like we're always planning, but it's a very important component of what we do. We spend a lot of time on community engagement, then pre-feasibility and, project confirmation. Then we do procurement. Only then does a project hit the ground. And that might be a year and a year and a half into a project. So Implementation could be 2 years, 3 years, and then we also look after what we call an aftercare period or retention period, and that typically takes you to about 4 or 5 years. So we do also take a long-term view. So we plan every 5 years what the next strategic direction would be. So that's the 5 years.
I want to get that. You plan every 5 years to see what's the next strategic direction would be. For how long?
We have a long-term vision for the city. There is a big picture,
Yes.
but we plan and budget and prioritize in 5-year
Yes.
cycles. So it's a bit of a medium long-term thing, but because I say that the projects are multi-year. So even if a project is only started in year 3, the planning for it starts now. So, but we take a 5-year view to these things.
You are listening to #MBDA Conversations. Be part of the conversation by sending your voice notes to our WhatsApp line 072 423 0271.
And then the past 2 years, there would have been some disruptions, the COVID. What changes did you make in the business plan and perhaps the operations?
So, I mean, the point of the business plan is not something that you change at a whim or there's now a set of circumstances, let's change the business. Remember, it's a strategic direction. But what COVID has done is like everybody else, you made your plans and had everything in place, and we were all had the carpet pulled from under us, and everything that we've planned, a lot of that was I think, like the rest of the world, highly impacted on. 26th of March 2020 was the announcement of Alert Level 5.
Yes.
Alert Level 5, Alert Level 4, our operations really, screeched to a halt because our projects is out in the communities. Capital projects, certain activities were not allowed, certain industries were not allowed to operate. We do a lot of construction projects. All of that came to a halt. And I think one of the big things in terms of how the MBDA does its work is based on meeting with people. We have all our projects, one of the few, and throughout the projects, not just at the start, is community, meeting with the communities, etc. We couldn't meet. Public engagements, all of our SMM issues, etc. Nothing could move on the projects. So as a team, the first thing that also happened is changing in our work environments. I mean, we have a team of professionals in-house. Everybody was sent home. Make yourselves comfortable, and we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we were at home with the kids baking banana breads and I don't know what, and trying to, have some semblance of work going. And as a team, we pulled together and said, okay, but now what makes sense in this time? Do we just, you can't just do nothing, but it's it was an opportunity for us to reflect on who we are as an organization and how we gear ourselves to be more responsive to our communities. So, for instance, whilst the typical work did not carry on, we could do other things. So, obviously, the scourge of COVID affected us all. The MBDA then decided, together with the stadium management, to make the stadium available as an isolation center. We had various COVID relief programs. We have a team out in the science center that was making masks and sanitizers, etc. So we changed gear a little bit. I think the 5-year plan and the business plan had to just pause a bit and see what else we could do, because projects were not moving, money was not being spent, etc. Could we redirect our focus into some of these areas? So COVID, that took up a lot of our time, but it was a learning experience, and I think we all sort of got used to the new normal now, and we are now, in fact, today is we are having a strategic session to review our 5-year plan, because what we planned 4 years ago, we're 4 years into the plan now. The world has changed since then. Some of the stuff in there just doesn't make sense anymore. So it's even an earlier review than the normal 5 years, because we have to be relevant and we have to be responsive. And some of the, in terms of the entity's role in the municipality, there's also a new leadership in City Hall. To take all that into account, you have to take that into the work that you do. You have to be responsive to your principles, which is the city leadership, as well as to what the community needs are.
And you have to manage all the operations and the moving parts.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is to be adaptive and to be flexible, and the moving parts is a thing. So you think you're planning for 5 years, your plan is in place. You're going to do 1, 2, 3 in this sequence, in this. That's not reality, but I think that's the new way of being in a state of flux. Is what we need for a little while now is not to say, look, okay, we planned this, but that's not really working at the moment and it's not meeting the need. Can we adapt slightly? So that's been the challenge, because we're part of government and that's a big ship that moves slowly. So one other thing about the entity is that we can be a little bit more agile than a big organization like the municipality. Our turnaround times for things can be, because we're a small team, can be a little bit quicker, and we can be a lot more agile. So that's how we also, one of our value propositions is that we can move into the space and say what else we can do. I mean, one of the tenets of the organization is to be innovative. And to look at new ways of doing things. And often when we say innovation, we think high-tech stuff. Innovation is not just that, it's new ways of communicating.
It could also be policy, because I'm sure that in the process of changing some operations because of the constraints of COVID, you also push the limits of policy, what is permissible as a public entity owned by the municipality, with the non-existent at the moment, maybe public engagement.
Yeah.
So what lessons did you learn from that aspect of pushing the boundaries of policy? Or maybe testing them?
I was just going to say, most of the policy is bound up in law. So I mean, the way we do things is we have to stick to the law. Even if we have to find different ways of still achieving what we need to achieve, it has to be within the law. I mean, basically what we do is heavily legislated, heavily prescribed. COVID, with the COVID regulations, did give us a fair amount of flexibility to do certain things. But that is new legislation. But the other things we had to make do. There's no changes in procurement legislation. There's no changes in SMME governed legislation. What we did, for instance, do is bring in things that make compliance easier. An example is previously tendering processes for projects. It would be physical meetings, clarification meetings would be physical meetings. All of that's gone online now. So we introduced a new e-tendering system, no need for meetings. So people can participate in tendering processes remotely. So that's a new innovation that we didn't have before. Yes. Working quite well. The other one around community engagement is, so we still insist on community engagement, public participation. The law requires that. Is our MBDA Engage platform, social media platform, that allows still community engagement on a zero base, so it doesn't cost anything to communities for them to engage and give their inputs in what we do, etc. So that's been a new innovation in COVID. That has helped us a lot to still not to be stuck and say, okay, but we can't do this because we can't meet, or we can't do, the alert level regulations doesn't allow us. So that's been very good. It shows that it can be done, and that a large part of the world, although we have certain communities that don't have access, and I think the disparities and the gaps between the affluent and the poverty-stricken areas was just highlighted in this time, because the world's gone online, but a big part of our communities were just literally isolated also from what's happening in the virtual world and online activities. So that's been a glaring issue that I think we're still struggling with how are we going to overcome that.
And you need to co-produce with these communities that you are saying that they're isolated. How does MBDA achieve this co-production, especially in relation to the active precincts and projects? I know you just flagged it out as an issue, but what are you thinking around it?
We have this term that we coined the MBDA Way, the MBDA Way. And the MBDA Way is that we build relationships in the community and we walk a road with that community. It's expensive in terms of time and effort, so it takes a long time. But it's an important principle in what we do and the way we do things. So that co-production is not to be prescriptive to communities as to, number one, what their needs are and what it is that they want to do and how they want to participate, etc. So when we design a project and a project plan, that is done together with that particular community. We've learned some tough lessons, I think, but I think it's standing us in good stead. You can actually now see the benefits of that, especially in COVID. Or maybe to give you an example is that during COVID, we've seen the scourge of, public facilities being vandalized, basically stripped to the bone. And interestingly enough, not in all our precincts, but in some of our precincts, in fact, some of the precincts that are, sort of beset with all the social ills where you would expect these things, that hasn't occurred at all. We did a sports complex in an area like in Helenvale, if you know, and we built ablution facilities, clubhouse facilities, upgraded sports facilities, etc. And that project was one of the KfW-funded SPUU projects in Helenvale, where we designed and built into the programming the community participation aspects. So instead of getting a security company to come and look after the facility, we structured it in such a way that the community themselves look after that facility. And if you compare to other facilities in this, where you had security maybe, whatever, there's nothing left. So there's a lesson to be learned there. Our communities shouldn't just be engaged once a year when we do IDP planning or whatever, or at the start of a project. And it's not just community beneficiation during the construction phase. Everybody talks about SMMEs and, how do they benefit, etc. The real benefit is in the facility or the service that's being delivered. But also, how does the community participate and benefit in that maintenance and operations post-construction? We've seen that as a gap in some of our planning in the public sector, that communities must be brought in, and that has made a difference when it comes to issues of vandalism or, theft, or it seems to be a disconnect between communities and some of these public spaces and public facilities. And what we're talking about is closing that gap. That they don't see, no, that is their community centre. They must see it as ours. So the thinking and the planning starts even way before, a spade is pushed into the ground to construct that facility.
Okay, that makes so much sense to me. And it makes sense that when people see this infrastructure belonging to them, and they are then responsible to taking care of it.
Be part of the conversation. For more information, visit www.mbda.co.za.
As normal right now, we'll be listening to your views that are sent to us via voice notes on WhatsApp, on our WhatsApp line, which is 072-423-0271. And please send more of those comments. There's one question for Debbie.
Hi, MBDA. Hope all is well. The MBDA capital projects have had their share of vandalism. What is the agency's plan for maintenance and operations of its precincts? Thank you.
I think, as I outlined it, our plans is that we don't just look at the construction phase of projects. It's the
Yes.
post-construction. And finding new ways of responding that we are not able to put a security guard on every public space across the metro 24 hours. That's not the answer. Besides that, it's excessively expensive, and it's proven not to really yield the type of results that you actually seek. So we are also challenged with that issue, but I think we have learned lessons in some communities where there has been some positive outcomes in some of the things that we've been piloting. So going forward, the way we design projects, the way we structure funding. You know, it's easier to get 30 million rand to build a building than to get 300,000 to maintain that building.
Yeah.
So the funding streams out there, I mean, it favors these big capital projects. You need both. You need the big capital investment, but you also need dedicated, clear plans to look after that facility. About a year ago, I think our board also took a decision to say, let's stop building new infrastructure. Let's go back to the drawing board and let's look at the infrastructure, maybe historical projects that we've been involved in, and we go back and see what needs to be done there. You know, are they still in good nick? Is there new investments that we've made? What can we do to upgrade and refresh, and so that investment still yields the results that it was intended to with its design and so forth. So that's an important thing. That going forward, I think even for the next 5 years in our planning, we started talking about planning, is to plan for those things, and even that means less capital projects.
And more psychosocial
more
programs.
soft projects. There's a term psychosocial or socio-economic development, but it also focuses on the human capital side, not just the infrastructure capital side, but investing in the people, youth development, issues of gender-based violence, women and children. How do we work those things into the projects that those sectors in our communities also find opportunities in our projects, job creation opportunities, skills development opportunities, with our partners in social services that they can service those sectors. So it's a rethink from just being an infrastructure or a building company to something that responds to the development needs. And the development needs often are not bricks and mortar, it's other things. We go in there and say, okay, what would you like to build us for? And they say, no, we don't want you to build us anything. We need jobs.
Yes.
Look after our youth. We have an issue with drugs. We have an issue with crime. That's also development.
Can you get as much funding for such project as you are getting for infrastructure project? Or maybe it's a matter of just thinking differently.
It is thinking differently. Our challenge has been that a lot of those things are not necessarily in the jurisdiction or the function of local government. It's other government departments like social development, the police, all of these economic development. We have an economic development, that one's fine, but the other ones are not necessarily municipal functions. So we don't get direct funding for that. So we are challenged to go out and find other sources of funding for that. So obviously just because of construction is more expensive, the costs of things are more expensive, but it is a new challenge for us and something that we've actually added to our job description, is to go, it's always been there, but it's not been such a focus. And now we think it has to be. We have to have set funding, committed funding to do those initiatives, and it can't be like not a knee-jerk response. It's got to be properly planned. So yeah, that's the next phase for MBDA, is to actually look after those aspects in community development as well.
One comment on preparing the community to receive infrastructural projects, preparing before experiencing it. And I know that you've done research, you have this online platform where people can feed in fill in their information. I know you've spoken extensively as well about their support for a project that they understand. Maybe from your side, what does it look like from the planning side to prepare them?
As development practitioners, going in there, we've learned, you might come with your ideas and your university degrees and your previous experience, etc. But communities are generally very good at being able to articulate their issues.
Yes.
They have an understanding of what the root causes are and what the solutions would possibly be. So it's basically just to take a stance or a posture of humility when you're going there, saying, we serve you.
I'm asking the wrong question.
You're asking the wrong question. We serve you.
Yes.
You tell us. We will help. We will sort of package things and we'll sort of put it into the administration, etc. But the fact of the matter, and in theory, this is what I'm saying. It doesn't always work like that because, like I say, it's government. Things take a long time. Communities are frustrated and so forth, and we have to stay within the law. But how that looks like is taking communities into your confidence. How that looks like is really open communication. Even if the news is bad news or might be, disappointing, they might not get what they're asking or the timing is not right or we can do it but we can't do it now. Still communicate that means. Don't just stay away, keep quiet, etc. Then it's like, you've dropped them. And that builds trust. So it's taking a long-term view, walking a road and investing in that. We have a dedicated person, a social facilitator in-house. So we're taking that building relationships with communities very seriously. It's a major part of the project work. The project thing that you see is the delivery of the process, but taking the community along the process. That is possibly, I think, the most important thing that I think also we do differently, and it looks like even that process, that you invest in that process, time and effort, that you treat people with dignity and respect. Things that might sound cliche or sort of common sense, we find incredibly important. Just think about it. You go to a meeting, and I think that this is a big bone of contention, but people come there having walked long distances. Now you come and talk. You come from your home comfortable, having had breakfast, etc. Being able to offer somebody tea and a sandwich and let's have a conversation. Just those little things, like we are here to serve and we have an understanding of, your circumstances, etc. So all of those things we build in this thing we term the MBDA Way, but that looks like the MBDA not coming into areas high and mighty, we the project management company, we the MBDA, is sort of, tone it down a bit and really going there with an intention to understand and to respond and say, let's do this together. It's not MBDA coming to do something for you. It is us having an ongoing conversation and let's do this thing together. It's to your benefit, it's to our benefit. That's what it looks like. And it looks slightly different for every community. New Brighton, the conversations and not the tone, but the local culture, the way people do things. And so in Helenville is completely different from the inner city, from Utneg. These are some of the precincts that we're working in, and to be sensitive to that and to work with that. So that's what it's looked like, and I think we have a lot to still improve on, but that's worked for us for now.
Thank you very much, Debbie. We've learned a couple of things, that when you move into a community, you must actually understand that the community knows best of their own surrounding and they can take care of it. We come in as servants to the people that we need to deliver services to, and that it always helps to communicate and to consult, which is a great thing. These big projects that you are doing really needs to be maintained. And I was going to ask who takes care of the 50-year plan and all of that, but I realized that your hands are busy trying to execute big tasks now, and the communities are keeping all of you busy.
I'm not going to be around in 50 years.
So thank you very much. Thanks for coming in studio, Debbie.
For more intriguing MBDA conversations, follow the MBDA on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please subscribe and share this podcast. Also visit the MBDA website and send us your questions or views via the MBDA WhatsApp line on 072 423 0271. Thank you for joining us. Till next time.